Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a special guest, Dr. Srinivas Kilambi. He has a deep background in technology. The best way I can summarize him, based on our pre-interview and then brief discussion before we went live today, is he's a technology expert, a technologist with multiple disciplines. And I want to frame him correctly and welcome him to the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Kilambi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So just before we jump in with all the questions that I want to ask, the first question I want to ask is, how would your friends describe you?
Well, I have different friends who call me differently. So some of them call me very disruptive. Some of them call me eccentric.
Okay.
Some of them call me innovative. Some of them call me a combination of all of them. But they all say one thing is that you are a very different person than all of us are. So basically, for example, sometimes I would just go out without a shirt on, not knowing I never had a shirt on. So that's typically me. It's a trademark of a person deep in thought, always thinking about what next to do, how to make the world a better place, or every time a technology or an idea that I forget where I am. But the short answer is disruptive, innovative, eccentric, but a good, I would say, warm human being.
Okay. And I'm going to ask a corollary question to that. Are you married, sir?
Yes, sir.
How would your wife describe you?
Well, my wife would say that she says I'm a very complex person, but a very simple at heart. So in other words, I try to make things overcomplicated, both in life and technology and science. I can't think simple and straight. The KISS mentality, maybe it's against me. So I always think plan A, B, C, D. So it's go all the way to D before, and you may never need them. And sometimes we do. So the short answer is, he would say she thinks that I'm a very simple, pure person. Never had an affair or anything, so that's good. And it's basically been but a complicated person in terms of the thinking process. And she would actually like me to, cut down on that and slow down and think one at a time, not 10 at a time.
Well, then you would be a dangerous person to play chess with because you're thinking too many moves ahead.
And sometimes it's easy too, because what happens is when you think 10 moves ahead, you miss the first move, right? so it does. So I think it's a double-edged sword, Mitch, because it's not. I don't take pride in thinking so far. It's not like I'm doing it purpose. It's more of a character. And sometimes I even pause and think that maybe I'm trying to do too many things. And it probably may not do justice to all of them, and slow down and pick 2 or 3. And off late, so I do a lot of yoga and meditation to slow me down and focus the thoughts into a more channelized. It's really helped. So off late, the last few years, there's been, I would say, a lot more focus on 1 or 2 rather than many,
Right.
Because you can't solve everything in the world. And if you can solve 1 or 2 very well, then I think it's you're leaving a bigger impact than trying to start 10 and not solving any one also.
Got it. Great. Okay. Well, thank you. And let's just dig right in. What is Dr. Srinivas's greatest accomplishment?
Well, I probably would say that the very fact that I have 25 plus patents of different technologies. So getting 1 patent is difficult. Getting 25, I think, is pretty good. And my patents have ranged from IT to artificial intelligence to renewable fuels to materials to environmental to chemical. So I've virtually excelled in all areas. Now that's one thing. But my greatest accomplishment, I would say, is that when I did my doctorate, mine was the fastest doctorate, or one of the fastest doctorate in the university I graduated. But it's unique. What was so unique about it? Most people who graduate with a PhD have many publications. Now, I had 0 publications and 4 patents. So my PhD was 0 publication, 4 patents. 2 of them got into startup companies, and both went to US IPOs in 96 and 97. To me, that was probably my greatest accomplishment, is to take what I did in PhD from a conceptual level to 2 IPO companies of $100 million in total raise, including the green shoe at that time, which most people may not know what it means. The green shoe is oversubscribed in 96 and 97. So I became from a poor, starving graduate student to a CSO, or Chief Scientific Officer of two public companies.
All right. I'm going to go in another slightly different direction. And I applaud you because I know how hard it is. I also have been involved with some utility patents and design patents.
Right. I've seen that.
There's a big difference between the two. And I presume your patents are all are utility patents.
Yes, they're all utility patents, right.
A whole lot more enforceable than design patents.
Right.
Yeah. So that's great. What is your greatest personal accomplishment? Now, you've lived in a couple countries, or two different countries. You got an immigrant background and success story here. So tell me a little bit about that. So, I want to know Dr. Srinivas personally.
Yeah. So personally, I think my personal success has been that I basically came to this country back in 85, 86 as a graduate student in Johns Hopkins University. I had to go back prematurely because of my ill health. I just couldn't adjust from a temperature in Madras was hottest to colder, coldest. So at Baltimore, so it's like two extremes, and I think and I'm a strict vegetarian and the food, and so I was probably caught, I would say, with the pants down. I didn't really expect no one to come. I was 21 years old. But I came back, I would say, 5 years later, a lot more mature, a lot more prepared, learned how to cook so that I could feed myself. And it became a great success. I did have one of the best masters at Carson University, did my PhD, postdoc, CFA. So everything went smoothly after that. So I think the very fact that I was able to take that initial, I won't call it a failure, but it's setback, into my stride and use that to come back strongly a few years later in this country and succeed. And I actually went to a colder place. I went to upstate New York. I actually went to, so Baltimore is fine, but I don't know if you have been to Potsdam, New York. That's like, the tallest building in that town is the Snow Mountain.
Oh my God.
It puts snow.
So that's Hawaii or California, but you chose another cold spot.
Right. So I took it as a challenge. I said, you know what? I'm going to succeed where I could not. And I went back, I did well, and the rest has been a great story so far. So I would consider that able to come back, successfully do it, earn my degrees, and all the subsequent accomplishments, or as a part of that great success story. A personality. It shows the personality of mine not to accept defeat and take a setback as a stepping stone for success.
Yeah, great. Next question. What do you wish you had known when you started out in life?
Well, so
we could go back to India, or we could go to the United States.
So one of the things which I would have, I'll be honest, you could consider me naive or whatever. I never imagined the world be so complex to live in. So I just thought when I was studying, did my studies and my bachelor's, I just thought the world was too easy, and people like simple. There are no complications, no politics, no different countries. I thought everything was so ideal, utopian world where everything looked so nice to you. When you stepped out of the real world, it's exactly not the same. I mean, there's so many poles in all directions. It's not necessary that the best person wins. It's not necessary that the best thing comes out. You need luck. You need money, a lot of money to succeed, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. You need good contacts. So there's so many things which actually, and the timing is very critical. So, for example, sometimes I've actually been able to raise capital and take companies relatively very simple without much effort. And sometimes even a Herculean effort is not able to cross the line. So all of these things, I think, are so the shortest answer is that the life was a lot more complicated than what it seemed when you are in college. It looks really simple and easy then. You have your studies, you have your friends, and that's it. And life is that simple then, right? But when you come out of it and start working or doing your career or trying to build out, you suddenly start seeing so many different facets of people where you never imagined that.
That's true. Very true.
So I would have been better prepared in hindsight if I knew that I had to I see all these issues. So, which I don't think any professor at the college can teach all that. It's life teaches you.
Life experience.
Yes, exactly.
So what are you curious about right now in your life?
So I would say more than curious. I'm very passionate about one thing is how to make planet Earth safer for our children and theirs. I feel that I don't know if you know or not, Mitch, but July 2021 was the hottest year in global history.
Yes,
Hottest
it
month,
was.
sorry,
I
hottest
read
month.
that.
Yeah,
I live in
hottest
Las
month
Vegas, and we
yeah.
had several 116-degree days.
And Vancouver had Canada had 40+ degrees centigrade. So the point is, I believe we are at a stage which is coming to a point where we're making it irrevocable. It's irreversible. And you know, I personally would like to see this reversed, and not in reverse, actually brought down. And so I have some cutting edge technologies, which I believe, including patents already approved, which can big. But that's that's something which more than curiosity, my passion and curiousness is to see what are the best ways, 3 ways or 2 ways to see that reversal of global warming, climate change, so that we owe it to our children and their children. I mean, if we don't do that, I mean, I don't want my grandchildren to say, "Oh my God, my granddad screwed up so badly along with his friends," or that we right now we can't even do anything. And I think that's not what, Mitch, you and I want to be remembered. You know, we want to be remembered for doing something good. And I think
Legacy.
we all owe it to them.
Legacy.
So that's what is big thing right now.
Yeah. So you want to also help with a legacy of people.
Right. I want to leave a legacy for all of us. See, no one man can't do it. All of us have to do it. You are doing your job by talking to me, and this interview hopefully will, if you can inspire one more person to think that way, we have done our bit, and then there's a chain reaction. You know? That's
great. That's great. Now I'm going to ask you a question that is contrary to pretty much your DNA.
Right.
But it's something we all have to accept as human beings.
Right.
What's something you failed at?
Oh, so I have failed at quite a few things. So one of the things which I have not done wonderfully, I would say, compared to everything, is that in some startups, which I have not carried out something to the fullest extent. So one thing I've learned is that you can't give up too easily. I mean, things are tough, and I actually gave up a couple of ideas, which in hindsight should not have done. So my biggest failure would be is not willing to see the entire course. It's jumping ship from A to B. I would say when things got tough. So there's the same, things get tough get going, right? So maybe I need to embrace that concept a little more stringently. Okay.
Now I'm going to ask you my favorite question, because I'm a bit of a history buff. I want to create some context about this. I love history because that shows that it repeats itself all the time. This question is a little bit of a different piece. If you could have coffee or a tea, because I know you got the kind of the British influence background, who would you choose to have that drink with? Let's call it a beverage.
Well, I would basically like to talk with 2 people. So one with Abraham Lincoln, if I can. Simply because I just admire that person's willingness to change the country so deep into slavery and all of this, whether by choice or by accident or a combination. But in spite of all odds, he was able to do that in this country. And of course, in my country, in India, where I came from, I want to meet Mahatma Gandhi. You know, I basically want to sit down with him and ask him, like how do you tell somebody to accept nonviolence when somebody is hitting you with a stick? And how can somebody just be so self-restrained? I mean, is that even humanly possible? But I don't. Today, for example, the way the world is around us, right? I mean, we saw what happened to bombing yesterday. It's like if Mahatma Gandhi was alive today, I mean, how would he even tackle a situation like we have today? I know he could tackle the British, but the question is, so I want to ask that you know, what exactly inspired him to go from there? So I think Abraham Lincoln, they both are very similar. They both did
very much so. Very much so.
Nobody thought they could, right? So
very much so.
Yeah.
So those are okay. Great answer. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi is absolutely high respect on my list. He's in my 5 that I would have there. And Abraham Lincoln, we both share that as well. He's one that all the presidents, and I would say George Washington, because he was the first president,
Right.
and that was interesting. But probably the most popular president in American history would be Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and also I would say the person who left the most impact. I mean, I would say yes, FDR. Yeah, he won the World War II, definitely. But this person, Abraham Lincoln, won the country. He kept the country. See, there would have been no United States if, for example, Abraham Lincoln had not fought the Civil War and brought the country back. Otherwise, there would be two countries, and God knows what would have happened here. You know.
Sure.
Right?
That's true.
So I think he played a big role.
All right. Well, who's been your most important professional mentor?
So I would say that I have so many, but the one person who comes out is Bill Joy. So William Joy was the co-founder of Sun Microsystems, and Sun Microsystems, the company, and he was a partner in a venture capital firm in California, and he took a liking for me, my ideas. So when I first went there and gave a talk, I still remember September 21, or I think it was 2007. He basically said to his junior partner, make sure Srinivas doesn't leave this room without a signed term sheet. So he was so confident about my ideas. He believed in me. He made the VC invest in 2 or 3 of my companies. Always thought that I had ideas which were far ahead of the times. And so I would, as a mentor, as somebody whom I admire, he would be up there. William Joy.
Right. Good. All right. So let's go to the young Srinivas before he became Dr. Kilambi. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would it be?
So I would say, as an 18-year-old, is that basically you should still continue the passion you are doing, but I would say a lot more focus. And it's important to make sure that you also take one thing which I would probably have done better had I known now is to take a few people along with you. You know, that's critical. No one person can achieve everything or anything. You need to have your own backers, and you need to make them believe in you, work with you. So I think a team playing, mentoring, and able to work together is very critical. My initial days, I think that was my biggest negative, was that I didn't know how to play a team because I was expecting everybody to be like me, and it's not possible. And I'm not like them, and they're not like me. I'm not like you, they're not like me. And so I would say it was more of being not mature, immature, I would say, very frankly. You know?
Okay. Well, that's credit to being 18 years old. I mean, we were all
exactly
young and dumb. Let's just say young and ill-informed. So that's just naive.
Right.
Okay. What is your plan to achieve your goals? Because based on your personality type, you've probably got a long list that you still want to
do. So as I said, I have now come down to a point where I have 2 specific goals, which I am doing with 2 companies, 2 startups, and I have personally invested about $500,000 of my money in each of them. Mm-hmm. So one is, and if you have time, so one, cement, right? Portland cement. We just saw this $1 trillion bill passed. Nothing can be built in modern times without cement, and cement is the second most used material after water on Earth. I don't know if you know or not. So after water is cement, right? And cement produces 8% of world's greenhouse gases. 8% of world's greenhouse gases. So basically, I have a technology which is US patent approved, granted, which can make cement with 0 greenhouse gases or close to 0.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah.
Wow.
So what you need in a big, if you know, cement is a huge kiln of 1,500 degrees centigrade. I can make that with no kiln at 200 degrees centigrade or lower. And it's the same input and output. Everything remains, the raw material and the end product are exactly the same. You can't differentiate. What the black box, which makes the cement, is completely different. And what it takes 1 hour there, my cement is done in like seconds, 4 seconds. So it's called using nanotechnology. So the word is nanotechnology. So using nanotechnology, I can make green cement, which without. So I would actually like your show and maybe you to promote this. You even ask the questions because to me this is important. If this technology gets adopted by cement companies, and I also would like to make a passionate plea to the United States because Mitch, I don't know if you're aware or not, cement is probably the only global industry where the United States is not even in the top 10, not even top 100. It's non-existent. No US company is in the top 10 or top 100. Okay, so if this technology of mine is already US patent granted, proven, can be adopted by US companies, not only will America be at the forefront of reversing climate change, it will also make American companies become the forefront of cement industry globally. And it can bring up jobs, economy in a decent way. So that's one. So I'm very passionate about that.
I'm sorry. I want to jump in here because you caught my attention.
Right.
You got my attention with this because I have another business I was exposed to about this type of earth saving and a lot of gas saving with pavement. There was a different type of pavement I was approached about.
Right.
So how did you compare? I understand the speed and the minimization of 8% of the gas that we're experiencing, the negative gas. What was the term you call it again? It's
nanotechnologies, greenhouse gases.
Greenhouse gases. Sorry.
Right.
What about cost?
Good point. So we already proved
that's always a matter.
The cost comes down by 30%.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. The problem is
we need to talk later.
Let me tell you. Yes. So let me tell you what happened. So many years back, I can't take a name in public, but in private, one of the largest cement companies, when I talked to them about this, they told me, Dr. Kilambi, how many drinks did you have last night? Okay. And then 4 and 5 years later, they actually invested in my company, in this technology. So we proved it to them. We produced kilograms of material. We proved it to them. But the problem is that it is an oligopoly, and there's too much invested right now in the status quo. So unless regulation comes, which will force these cement companies to change from this high greenhouse, 1,500 degrees centigrade to 200 degrees. Unless they force them, they put a carbon tax or anything, these guys will not change because they put $4 billion, $10 billion into it. So I think there has to be some push from science, from regulation, and for people. Hey, you either change or perish. Or we don't want to cement. We don't want to touch your material, which is 8% of world's greenhouse gases, and my technologies will actually make it close to zero.
Do you know what the problem is? Then you probably already know this, but this is as a layperson, but one that has been involved in patents and understands history, because I'm a very big history buff, especially related to business and innovation.
Right.
You're in this position with this product, similar to people that have come out with electric vehicles. There were the big companies they would buy out these electric vehicles because the normal engines, companies like Ford and Chevrolet and Mercedes.
Until one Elon Musk came and he brought Tesla and it changed. So I want to be the Tesla of green materials.
I love it. Let's talk further about this because
I want to be the man who changed materials like Elon Musk changed cars. I want to do that.
Dr. Kilambi, you're sitting on a gold mine and a way to really affect change. So I like that. But let's keep moving because we'll talk more about that. I think you've got a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. So that goes into this. How will you feel in case you don't get this to market?
Well,
let's just focus on this one goal because I know that's a biggie.
Right. So to me, this goal I'm trying to achieve goes way beyond me. I mean, humility set aside. It goes. So I would feel disheartened simply because I think that if technologies like these don't see the light of the day, then I really feel sorry for all of us, and I'm sure people, our children, our posterity would not feel sorry, would feel pretty bad about it. So I think we all owe this. But to answer your question is, I will feel pretty miserable as a technologist. Now, as a human being, I'll accept it. But as a technologist, I'll say, you know what? My biggest idea did not see for whatever reason.
Well, okay. I rarely have my attention caught. You caught my attention with this. Because when you're talking about 8% of the greenhouse gases in the world, and we're talking about global warming, these are macro issues, macro economic issues, macro social issues. And have you been in the press regarding this? Have you had all the publicity?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We'll talk. So that's an area where I, as you can make out, I'm absolutely zero. That's an area. I mean, even this show, somebody found me. I didn't find my way into you. Somebody found me. So,
we'll talk more later. All right.
Okay.
So let's, when you have a challenge in life, and we've all had them because we're close to the same age. I think I'm a few years older.
Yeah.
But still consider myself a young man because I'm looking for
absolutely. Age is a number, and you ask the youngest what your heart says you are. Right.
Exactly. So when you have a challenge, how do you manage it?
So the challenge, there are two parts. One is that the way I look at it is that you should not take straight no for an answer. So you got to find what is the path of least resistance initially and work your way through. And the second, I think, is that you have to take help with people beyond what you think is obvious. So sometimes, for example, my wife, my daughter, and my friends, they may have different skills, but they make some very interesting one point. If you have a time for half a minute, I can give you an example which can exactly tell you this. So in 2007, Dave O'Reilly was the CEO of Chevron, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He said that at that time, the greatest movie was Da Vinci Code. And he said solving the cellulosic code, which is converting wood chips or biomass to sugar, was bigger than solving Da Vinci Code. So I was trying that in different research projects. I couldn't solve it. Then I was sitting one day and meeting a friend like you, and he said, what, Srinivas, maybe nature has made it like this. If biomass was so easy to crack, we would have no food to eat. Imagine that. All these corn straw, wheat straw, wood chips, they've all survived different temperatures, different conditions, acid rains. So the nature has made them very strong. So then I thought, okay, so maybe you have to do something which doesn't exist in nature. So my technology then was, I invented a technology which completely did what was not available in nature. And I got 20 patents of that one technology, and that company got a $280 million exit 4 years later. So again, one simple comment from a complete outsider saying, maybe you should look at a technology or an idea which doesn't exist in nature. So how do you overcome a challenge? You actually talk to people who may, in your opinion, know nothing, but they may know a lot.
Okay. What's one question you wish I had asked, and how would you have answered?
So I think I just asked the question before. I would have. I think the one question I would have loved you to ask is, how can you or your show help this technology to see the light of the day? I mean, how do we bring it out? We have applied to NSF grants, so that's great. But I think that the people,
publicity. Here's the short answer.
Especially the powers may be in Washington should know something like this exists, and instead of the United States saying we cannot, maybe we can and we should, and that's the whole idea. Well,
let me just give you the short answer, and this is a longer, bigger business answer. Is you force from a ground level up. And I have been involved in lots of products, and you create a groundswell of interest. And I asked the critical question. It's one thing about green gases. Okay, that's great. But you mentioned you responded correctly to the critical question, the money.
Cost. Yes.
30% less.
30% less in both CapEx and OpEx. So which means for a new facility, so it's rare to see 1/3 down in both capital expenditure and operating expenditure. So that's what my CFA, I'm half finance, half technology. I take care of both sides.
Well, you met the marketing person, so we'll talk more about this. Okay, no, that's great. Okay, so if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about? What would you like to announce to the world? Because it's a fancy business card. And it's also
I would like to write a book about, I would say, how to reverse climate change and global warming, and what role any human being, all of us, could play in it. I'm trying to. It could be as simple as recycling to as complicated as the green cement technology, but there are so many in the middle, and I think it's important that somebody brought out a step-by-step. For all of us, for somebody who's like you, who's not a technologist, to somebody like me, and somewhere in the middle, so that they can say, oh, a lot of times most people say, you know what, climate change, greenhouse gases, there are PhD scientists, let them handle it. I do whatever I want. that's not the way, or I just recycle this enough. But as a US Mitch, I as Srinivas, somebody can do a lot in the middle too.
Sure.
And that's, I think there needs to be some education. I've already begun writing that chapter about what are the baby steps everybody can take before we run a marathon and achieve the goal.
Okay, great. Well, I think you've sort of answered this, but it was in my questions to ask is how can we support you?
So we would love to see if there is a way to bring this out, some sort of publicity, as a way to bring it out. I mean, honestly, we both have I made considerable amount of money. So I'm not doing this for money, really. It's like so beyond money. It's a passion to see that we as human beings do our duty while living on this planet. And I think I believe my technology will definitely play a big role in that.
Well, 8% of greenhouse gases, that's huge.
That's huge, humongous. And no other industry except for coal power contributes as much in one place. So if you take the cement plants and just change them from A to B, 8% is gone. And
that's amazing.
We'll talk more about completely reversed.
We'll talk more about that. Absolutely. Right. Okay. Beautiful. So this is where people can learn or go to your website to learn more about you or contact you.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. Okay. And my final question, or one more, then I got to get there, is how would you say your guest experience has been on this show so far?
Well, incredible. I mean, I'm totally honored, and I believe that shows like this are absolutely required because what you have done is even put my mind to think. And even if few people read, listen, watch, I think it'll be fantastic. So I'm really honored, and I think it has been one of the best experiences.
Well, and I can refer you to other shows so you can get more exposure, which I think
absolutely. Thank you very much.
The key is exposure.
Right.
And final question: what is your final word? How would you like to leave this? And then,
I would say let's work together to solve this immediate pressing problem of climate change, global warming. I mean, we need to work together. It has to be combined. It's not a one person or a one country or a one politician. Every single human being, we should work together. So let's work together. I think it's cooperation. The word should be cooperation and co-integration.
Well, Dr. Kilambi, it's been an incredible pleasure to have you on the show. We've gone 32 minutes up to this point. Normally, the shows end after about 15 minutes. Where it's I'm really honored, and thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it because it's very interesting, and you've got something that is a lot more than what I usually interview. And it's a credit to your passion. It's a credit to your interest in leaving a legacy and affecting change after you're gone, because we are here for a finite period of time.
I would love Mitch Carson and his show to be part of the legacy. So it'll be my honor.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Bye.